Okay, folks, get ready to dive into something really special.
Mm.
We are talking Ghanaian egg stew.
Yes.
This is a dish that's packed with flavor and has some pretty interesting techniques that I'm excited to break down.
It really is fascinating.
Yeah, you think of egg stew and you just think of,
Scrambled.
scrambled eggs kind of thrown in with some stuff.
Right.
But this is not like that at all.
It's so much more complex.
It's so much more complex. It's a rich tomato-based stew.
And layered.
It's layered and we're going to talk about all the layers and what makes this recipe so special.
And unique.
Yeah. So I'm excited to get into this.
Yeah, me too.
So
dive in.
let's dive in. So like we always do, we've got the recipe right in front of us.
Yeah.
And we're going to go step by step and kind of talk through
What makes this
so special.
special?
So first of all, we're going to start off with our ingredients.
Okay. It's wonderful.
And the ingredient list, I was looking at it this morning.
Yeah.
It's pretty straightforward.
It is.
Tomatoes, peppers, onions.
Yeah.
Seems like kind of like the building blocks.
Yeah, absolutely. And it speaks to a resourcefulness, you know?
Right.
These are ingredients that are so readily available.
Yeah.
But when they're combined in just the right way, they make this incredible depth of flavor
Yeah.
that's so synonymous with West African cooking.
Of course.
Sounds good.
So we've got onions. We're going to slice those up.
Yeah.
We're going to heat up some oil in a pan.
Mm-hmm.
And then things start to get a little bit interesting.
A little bit.
A little bit interesting because we're only dicing some of the tomatoes.
Okay.
Right. And we're saving the peels.
Okay.
And then we're also only using half of the chopped onions at this point.
Interesting.
So this technique of selective blending, like it's not something that's completely unheard of.
Right.
But I always kind of been curious.
I know, me too.
Like, why only blend some of the ingredients?
Right.
So can you talk a little bit about
Sure.
the culinary magic that's happening here?
Well, I think it's all about building complexity
Okay.
in both the texture and the flavor.
Okay.
So by blending just a portion of those tomatoes and onions, you're creating a smoother, more integrated sauce without losing that satisfying chunkiness.
Interesting.
So you're kind of getting the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
You have that smooth base, but you still have those little bits of tomato and onion in there for texture.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And it's a technique that's actually used in a lot of different cuisines.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you see it in Indian curries, French sauces.
Wow.
It's really a global...
So it's a universal kind of a...
Yeah, it's a universal way to just elevate a dish.
Okay, so we're kind of building layers from the beginning.
Exactly.
And speaking of layers, we're adding the tomato puree now.
Yes.
Is tomato puree something that's pretty common in Ghanaian cooking?
Oh, absolutely. Tomato puree or, some sort of concentrated tomato base
Okay.
is really a staple in a lot of Ghanaian stews and sauces
Makes sense.
because it just adds that richness and depth of flavor that really rounds out the dish.
Okay, so we've got our blended tomatoes and onions going in the pan now.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's time for the part that I always get excited about.
Oh, yeah.
The seasoning.
Okay.
So we're using Maggi cubes in this recipe.
Yes.
Oh, how I love Maggi cubes.
Me too. They're like magic.
They're matched.
Little flavor bombs.
Yeah. Are they a big part of Ghanaian cuisine?
They are absolutely ubiquitous in Ghanaian cuisine. You will find them everywhere.
Okay.
From stews and soups to marinades and rubs.
Interesting.
People use them for everything.
Okay.
They just add that unique savory depth that's so hard to replicate.
Yeah, and it feels like such a...
Like a secret weapon.
Yeah, like a secret weapon.
It's like, what's that extra something, What's the Maggi?
It's the Maggi. Yeah.
Kind of cool, yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got our seasoning going in,
Mm-hmm.
and then we need to add some liquid. And wait, are we really measuring with a coffee mug?
We are.
A quarter mug of water that is fantastic.
It's so approachable.
I love it.
It's like home cooking doesn't have to be so precise.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just grab your coffee mug.
Exactly.
You're good to go.
I love it.
It takes the pressure off.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So we got our water simmering away and
Until those bubbles disappear.
until those bubbles disappear, which means that it's evaporated from the oil.
Exactly.
Okay, and now it is time for the main event.
The eggs
The egg.
are stars of the show.
Yes. So we're just cracking them right into the simmering stew.
Mm-hmm. As many as you like.
As many as we like. So, I mean, the recipe says 4.
But if you're feeling...
But if you're feeling eggy,
Yeah.
go for it.
Go for it.
And to finish it all off, we're going to sprinkle with some sliced raw onions.
Yes.
Now, this intrigues me a little bit.
Okay.
Because is that purely for aesthetics, or is there a flavor component to that as well?
It's both.
Okay.
It definitely adds that visual appeal.
Yeah.
But those raw onions also provide a burst of flavor
Okay.
that's really sharp and pungent, and
Okay.
it contrasts beautifully with the richness of the stew.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it's a really clever way to balance the overall taste experience.
Yeah, I love those little
pops of flavor, those
Yeah.
little surprises.
Yeah, those little surprises.
Yeah, and of course you could always experiment with other garnishes too.
Oh.
Maybe some fresh herbs would be nice, or a dollop of something creamy.
Oh.
Get creative.
Yeah.
And don't forget, the stew is absolutely fantastic, served over a bed of fluffy rice.
Yes, I was going to say, like, what would we
eat this with?
Yeah.
Yeah, rumps is definitely the classic accompaniment.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
So for our listeners who are ready to dive into a bowl of this Ghanaian egg stew,
Yes.
we've got a recipe that is incredibly flavorful,
Mm-hmm.
simple to make,
It is simple.
and super adaptable.
So adaptable.
Like, you can really make it your own.
Absolutely.
You can play with the quantities. You can
Yeah.
adjust the seasonings.
Add your own little flair.
Get creative with the garnishes.
Yeah.
It's all about making it your own.
Yeah.
But before we wrap up,
Okay.
I'm left with one kind of burning question.
Okay, shoot.
Like, what's the cultural significance?
So that's a good question.
Yeah, of egg stews like this in Ghana. What stands out to you as like the most important takeaway for our listener?
I would say don't be afraid to experiment.
Okay.
The recipe is a guide, but adjust the spices, try different pepper, maybe even different accompaniments.
Right.
You can make it your own.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It feels like there's a story here waiting to be told.
Food always tells a story.
Yeah.
And this recipe is really just a glimpse into the rich culinary tapestry of Ghana.
Yeah.
And I hope this deep dive inspires you to not only try this delicious stew, but also to delve a little deeper into the fascinating world of Ghanaian cuisine and all the stories that it holds.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this delicious journey.
It was my pleasure.
I think we all learned a lot today
I know I did.
about Ghanaian egg stew.
It's more than just eggs.
It's more than just eggs.
So much more.
That's for sure.
Yes.
Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Bye.